This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
The Left versus the Right on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to another edition of Left versus the Right. I am James Flippin on the right, and my companion from the left, former Governor David Paterson. How you doing, Gov?
I endorsed Andrew Cuomo.
Talk about not burying the lead. We might as well get right into it. I mean, look, as the guy who is on the right in this particular equation, it goes without saying that I am not endorsing Andrew Cuomo.
I'm shocked.
Furthermore, I find it rather repulsive to consider the aspect of him potentially being the next mayor of New York City. But we can wait on my particular analysis or thoughts and open it right up for Governor Paterson to tell us why Cuomo, Governor Paterson.
Well, first of all, James, it's good to be with you again. Thanks for opening the show.
Absolutely.
And what happened really was that when Eric Adams decided to run as an independent, the New York County leader, Keith Wright, and myself, and we generally endorsed together, we came to the conclusion that Eric Adams cannot win for mayor, not out of an independent campaign. Also a campaign that's going to be restricted of money because he didn't win those cases with the Campaign Finance Bureau.
Right.
So now we've eliminated him, and there's this trend, and the person who's benefiting from it is Zoran Mondani. And I want Zoran to know that I pronounced his name correctly. And he, in some polls last week, was within 5 points of Cuomo. And then there was an internal poll that I can't really verify that it's real, but I was told that he was then 2 points behind Cuomo. So when the two of us, meaning the former Assemblyman Keith Wright and myself, saw this, we're like, we got to do something. And we picked him because, honestly, toward the latter stages of this race, Adrienne Adams has performed very well. She was twice as good in the Thursday night debate as she was the three weeks before. But the reason we wanted to take Cuomo is we knew he had the resources to mount a total, a complete race to November. We knew that he's done this kind of work before. He used to be a governor. And we knew that he is an excellent administrator. Like, he gets the right staff together. I mean, I've seen this in different places when he was in the Attorney General's office, when he was governor, that kind of thing. So that promoted stability. So now the question is, do we want stability, or do we want to take a chance that we get maybe a candidate that's way too far left, and I know you're not a Democrat, but we think about these things when we're Democrats. Adams, who, if you listen to his statements and you close your eyes, you would think he's running as a Republican. And I'm not putting
in what respect?
His forceful defense of the president. He even defended when the police played golf with the president, which I don't really have a big problem with that. But just everything that comes up, he seems to take the administration's point of view.
So it's an important aspect for any Democrat right now that somebody be firmly anti-Trump.
I would think, yes. That I wouldn't say.
I mean, in some ways, it's stating the obvious. I guess I'm just drawing it out.
Yeah.
Basically, being as anti-Trump as possible is the most important thing you could possibly be.
If you're anti-Trump, just right now, the Republicans, they want to find out which of three candidates can be more anti-Hochul than the other. That kind of thing.
Well, I mean, but it's because Hochul and her party embrace terrible policies that are ruining the state and sending people down to the Carolinas and Florida. It has nothing to do with her in particular. It's the feckless pursuit of these leftist policies that are leading the state in a bad direction. Like, that's the part of it that I understand your perspective on it, Governor. I think you're looking at it from a practical position of a politician who says, I have adherence to my party platform. I want to see who of the party can possibly win. By the way, just to note, I think there was a Justin Brennan poll where he had been doing some internal polling, and he actually had Mamdani as the number one candidate on that particular poll amongst his supporters. Yeah, so there's definitely some momentum behind Mamdani. But I guess if we did get into the personal side a little bit, I'm curious to hear you expound on this with Cuomo. I know in the past you had basically said you didn't run for re-election as governor because he dangled the concept of you being indicted for like maybe taking some Yankees tickets or something like that, where, meanwhile, I can't imagine a governor of a state going to a Yankees game and there being a problem with that. But didn't that happen? I mean, correct the record if I'm wrong, but didn't he more or less try to intimidate you and bully you out of running for office in the first place?
He went and met with a number of business leaders in the city around November 2007, 2009, I want to say. And they come back to me. One of them came back to me to say that the group is convinced that he would be the best person to run for governor now. And, what can we do for you? And I said, what you can do for me is get out of my office because I'm running for governor.
Right.
And he'll have to do it over my dead body. So in 2008, it just seemed, James, like every week something came up and I was at the root of it. There was a staff member who I believe assaulted a significant other. And the woman, realizing that this was happening, went down to the Attorney General's office and told them, because they had twisted the story that I had asked her not to prosecute him. I did have a conversation with her in which I asked her why she didn't go to the police. And she said, I'm really not trying to kill this guy's career, but you just tell him to stay away from me, which I did. So then they twisted it around. But the statement she gave at the Attorney General's office never came out during the whole investigation. And it only surfaced after the investigation. This should never have been an investigation at all. And the Yankees tickets, that was just like the most preposterous thing I've ever heard. At one point, they wanted me to pay $96,000 for not paying to go to that game.
$96,000?
Yeah. I wound up paying $60,000. I paid $60,000.
I mean, and
that's the biggest fine I've ever heard of anyone paying in any form of government, business, education, finance, and I just felt
and this was all action brought forth by his Attorney General's office.
Now, when I called him and asked him to look into the situation involving the staff member and the woman, I called him. He then holds a press conference and his press release says the Attorney General will now investigate the governor. So I get up a couple of days later and I said, I think it's really quite interesting that the Attorney General is going to investigate the governor while he's running against him. And so by, the end of the day, they said, oh, that was an error. Actually, she's now no longer with us. But the chief of the Court of Appeals, Judith Kaye, ran the investigation. But Kaye was never really involved in the, when I had to go in and be deposed by them. And she just kind of sat there. And I kind of got that she didn't think they had any kind of case. And so then finally, when they end it and I'm cleared. But they write in the, in their summary that I should never have called the woman who made the complaint about being assaulted. How could I have known that in other words, I didn't call her, she called me.
Right.
And that's what they said. I shouldn't have taken a call from the woman, but I didn't know what she was calling about.
Right.
So now I psychically, figure out.
I mean, it would be essentially especially sexist if you were going to say, oh, well, you're a woman. It's certainly possible that there's some sort of untoward sexual abuse allegation. We cannot speak right now. You must get out of my office.
Something like that. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly. On. So what I would say, we've had, these
a checkered history, I guess.
Issues. And I remember there was a minority and women's business platform that I had set up back when I was lieutenant governor, and I got at their annual event an award. So then in 2017, 10 years later, the other 9, he came and accepted the award. They decided to go back and give me the award, and his counsel called up the group and said, the only mistake you made is you're honoring the wrong governor. And they said, well, we've honored your governor like 9 years in a row. This is the guy who started it. And they said, well, you can go ahead and have him speak there, but don't ask us for anything.
Wow.
It's that kind of thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, this is the thing, Governor. I certainly respect you being a big enough man to say, I'm going to look at what I think is right for my politics, what's right for my party, what's right for the city, what's right for the state, in your opinion. And you're going to put aside some of that stuff that other people might not be able to put aside, say from a personal perspective. And if you're just joining us, this is the left versus the right. I'm James Flippin. Governor David Paterson is with me, and we're talking about his endorsement of Andrew Cuomo for mayor in the upcoming November election. So all that being said, the personal stuff that you can put aside, I think that's great. But doesn't it speak to this guy's character that Andrew Cuomo, the politician, seems more than willing to use intimidation, threats of prosecution, the chilling effect of the law to gain what he wants from a political perspective? This is also a guy who, back when I was probably just a little kid, or maybe even before that, I don't know the actual year, put signs out to smear Ed Koch saying, vote for Cuomo, not the homo. I mean, this is a guy who's got negative scruples when it comes to whatever. He's so power hungry, he'll do whatever to get back in. Isn't that a concern? Isn't that something that should maybe give people pause when they're thinking about who to vote for in November?
Well, I think they gave people pause back in 2021 when a lot of these stories came out and he was basically forced to resign. Now, I think that he could manage the city better than the other candidates there. But just on ability, I think he can. But at the same time,
it sounds like you would have preferred Adams, but you just don't really give him much of a chance.
I don't, if she started in January.
Oh, you're talking Adrian Adams.
Oh, Adrian. Eric Adams.
Yeah, you would have preferred either Adams.
I would have preferred probably either Adams. But
from an electability perspective,
standpoint, and right now with the issues and, whether or not the federal government is going to try to perform in New York what they've been able to accomplish in other states and how that all works, I think he's the best person to be at the helm.
What do you mean by that? You're talking about the immigration enforcement?
The immigration enforcement, right. But Mondani, in the Thursday night debate, after Cuomo said that he had no experience,
right?
Mondani said, "But I never had to resign from an office."
He did
because of a scandal.
It was quite a comeback.
He said, "I never, had to explain why 13 women accused me of sexual misconduct." And he went through this whole list. And the way he did it, because he was saying it quickly, was kind of devastating. And one of the things he mentioned at the end which I'd forgotten, is that he subpoenaed the medical records of one of the women who then dropped the case.
Right.
It's almost like, and I'm not saying that he did something to her before, but I'm saying if the woman's telling the truth, then she was double victimized. First by whatever happened, and then the other by, the subpoena.
Yeah.
If someone accused me of doing something wrong, and I said on my honor I didn't do it, last thing I do is, like, behind the scenes, try to dissuade them from continuing to accuse me.
Yeah. I mean,
I didn't understand that at all.
I think that the facts of the matter are that all of this stuff surrounding Cuomo is really sticky, right? You've got the allegations of him issuing the improper order with the nursing homes, and then COVID running rampant in the early days of...
See, and James, on the nursing homes, and it seems that something happened, right? It might not.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, ultimately the guy is such a jerk that he can't even accept and say, hey, this was a novel virus that we didn't really know that much about. Maybe I shouldn't have had that order go out. In essence, it's a tragedy, just like it was in everybody else's life.
And that's actually,
but he can't accept that. He
kind
can't
of
do
how
that.
President Biden was able to slide through that, because he didn't, what you said, he said, look, this is a serious virus.
Yeah, Cuomo,
we knew we were going to have problems.
Cuomo tries to play this like New York tough guy game that he's really actually not good at. Like, he thinks he can do the Trump game, but he really can't. I understand that he runs a good political game. He gets the right aides in office. He's got the good machine, all this kind of thing, raises the political capital. He's got the name. But when he tries to play this tough guy game, it really comes off really, really poorly. And I think that was exposed on the debate stage earlier this week.
Yeah. There were, when I endorse someone, I try to do it 100%. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to be like his coach from my bedroom. Mm. And I'm thinking, no, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? But here's the interesting thing. It's never cost him. Now, maybe, let's see, we're talking 10 days from now.
Yeah.
It's election day.
Well, I mean, look, it's so weird with the ranked choice voting. I feel like in some ways you're trying to totally understand a reality that is hard to make sense of, right? Like, it's not just the bean counting that we always did. It's what percentage are you on the second place ballot and then third place here, and you got to do the math.
By the way, James, I read somewhere, I just can't remember, or I'd cited, that the returns will not be in from this ranked choice voting for a week.
Yeah.
That would tear this city apart.
Well, but I mean, don't you think, I mean, it was similar last time, I think, if memory served. It's so
yeah, you're right. It was a couple of days because Adams had won by 107,000 votes. And by the time they got to ranked choice voting, he won by 5,000 votes.
Right. That's what I mean. Like the whole thing gets kind of whittled away, and then you figure out, okay, what really is the margin here? And we'll have to see how that plays out. In a second, we're going to have to hit our first break. So everybody hang with us here on
Why,
Left
James?
versus
I'm
Right.
just getting warmed up.
I understand, Governor. Trust me. We are going to keep you going. We're going to keep putting the gasoline in the machine, and we're going to be humming along, purring, just like a well-oiled machine, as a matter of fact. But stuff that we're going to get into today include Iran, Israel, the latest geopolitical tension there. Also, I want to ask you about Senator Alex Padilla out in California and your reaction to that. The ICE protests, kind of the background of that whole thing. Also, the New Jersey governor's race is now set between Mikey Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli. We can get into that and some other issues as well. But this is the left versus the right. Last note, Governor, I'll give you a chance to respond to this when we come back quickly. But I just want to note that Governor Cuomo has had a chance to show the voters of the state and the city who he is. This guy, Mamdani, seems like the shiny new object. But the one thing that we really want to keep in mind is that there's a well-established New Yorker who is running for mayor in this race, and he loves the city. Maybe he's not the most experienced politician in the world, but for whatever it's worth, James Flippin is endorsing Curtis Sliwa. Let's just make that clear. This is the left versus the right. We'll get further reaction from Governor Paterson when we come back.
The left versus the right.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Buick. Buick certified service technicians are factory trained to fit your vehicle with the tires specifically developed for it. And with our tire price match guarantee, you get the best fit for the best deal. Buick, exceptional by design. Available on select eligible tire brands at participating dealers only. Offer ends 12/31/2025. Terms apply. See dealer for complete details. Visit Buick.com/service to learn more.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Learning through play starts with Lego Duplo. With Lego Duplo, toddlers can develop real-life skills while having fun with colorful bricks made just for them. Large, easy to grip, and safe to explore. When children express themselves with Lego Duplo, they build patience, problem-solving, and empathy. See your child learn perseverance and self-expression with everything they imagine and create. Visit lego.com/preschool to learn more.
The left versus the right. I'm James Flippin on the political right, and he is Governor David Paterson, the former governor of New York, who is joining us here from the political left. So, Governor, any last thoughts on your Cuomo endorsement? You know, I understand basically you're looking at it from the political standpoint. You think he's got the best machine behind him should he get in office.
I'll just say that when I've seen him, which is recently more than usual, he does seem more relaxed. He does seem to be a little more at ease. You know, he's humanized himself to a certain degree. And
you think he was humbled somewhat by his fall from grace or whatever?
I can't say about that because that was 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. So maybe he was humble for a week, and then he
he was ooh, that stings.
Went back to being, the way he has been.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that if he can maintain the decorum that I have seen from him when I've been around him, he not only could be a mayor who knows how to operate the city, but he could become a mayor who has a relationship with the city. Michael Bloomberg had a relationship with the city. Ed Koch had a relationship with the city. David Dinkins,
right?
Even though he had one term, he loved the city, and people didn't vote the way he would have liked in 1993. Mayor Giuliani won, but there's a special relationship, I think, between the mayor of New York and his or her constituents.
I agree, totally agree. That's why I would rather pick the guy that's lived in New York his whole life than the guy who lived in Westchester for a while. But anyway, that's just me. That's just me. So Iran, Israel, obviously the geopolitical tensions really bubbled over this past week. You had the airstrikes launched first by Israel on Friday and what they called a preemptive measure, and then a retaliatory strike from Iran, sending ballistic missiles into central Israel. What do you think happens next with this particular conflict between, say, Iran and Israel? For a while, it's been more the proxy war with, obviously Hamas in Gaza and, the Houthi rebels and the ongoing actions in Lebanon and stuff like that. So, I mean, do you think this is going to go all-out war at this point? Is that what you're predicting? And do you think the U.S. is taking the right approach up until this point?
I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is forcing the issue here. He is tired of these attacks, against Jewish people, not just in Israel, but all over. And he wants to see some real progress. He knows that Iran is at the root of some of this, or if they're not actually part of the plan, they give whoever is the wink, whether it's the Houthis or whoever they are. Mm-hmm. And I think that the White House surprised me a little bit. I thought they played it a little cool. Marco Rubio said, we didn't know anything about this, but, they did tell us they were angry or, something like that.
Right.
It wasn't a statement.
And in essence, I thought it was noteworthy that the U.S. side of it, the Secretary of State was quick to say, not our move. We're not involved. I think maybe you could say Trump's tone was a little bit more conciliatory towards the Israeli position and kind of a little bit more supportive of whatever they had going on. But yeah, I mean, look, there is a clear desire from the Trump White House to achieve a peace agreement in these larger protracted conflicts, whether it's Israel and their various opponents there in the Middle East, which is a lot more complicated maybe, or if it's the Russia-Ukraine thing. And it's got to be frustrating to an extent, I would think, for the Trump White House that they seem kind of unable to secure the deal there, right? Like there's the Ukraine-Russia thing that's kind of lingering. And then this Israel-Gaza proxy state Iran, that's almost getting even more out of control. So I think there's real concern that this could just become more or less the start of a major war between these two countries. The one thing that I don't know as much about, and maybe this is something that reports will continue to kind of, bring this to the fore, what really is going on there, is whether or not this initial Israeli airstrike really crippled the military capabilities of Iran. Now, that's a dangerous assertion to be just kind of banking on, but the idea is
a lot of people got killed.
And a lot of these power people were taken out.
Apparently 3 of the nuclear scientists got killed. And I think you're right. And just the way the year began, meaning the term of President Trump, his second term, mm-hmm. He was doing so many things so quickly. Even when he looked like he had botched up the tariffs, he found a way out of that. Within a week, you didn't even care. The market was back up. And so he's been rolling the dice, and they're coming up, and by the way, today's his birthday.
That's right. So, happy birthday, President Trump.
Yeah.
How about that? And happy birthday to the Army, as a matter of fact.
250 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but the what you just said is right on the money. At some point, there's got to be either an event that creates understanding, and so you can now negotiate, or an understanding that one or both of the sides is not going to negotiate. I would tend to think it's Hamas who doesn't want to negotiate because everything has to be their way, or they don't think it's a fair agreement.
Well, I think that you're making a good point in the sense that if you were going to rank the two major wars, the ongoing, hot wars that we're trying to figure out a way to end from afar with Israel and, again, all of their kind of opponents there in the Middle East, and if you have the Ukraine-Russia one on the other side, the Israeli situation and trying to come to a peace deal there just seems almost impossible, right? I mean, we're talking thousands of years of religious conflict. We're talking the embedded nature of terrorism and, all these different proxy armies and interests. And it just feels like it's a really hard position to ever really get your hands around. And then you couple that with the massive anti-Semitism movement that's going on here in the United States. It just feels like an impossible one. I imagine that maybe there's a little more progress being made on the Ukraine-Russia side because that one's a little bit more cut and dried. Like Ukraine is kind of, playing out the string a little bit in that respect. But
yes,
I just find it interesting to note, if I could quickly pick up on one thing you said, just because I have to push back as the member of the right. You said President Trump kind of stumbled his way into a success with the tariffs. I just want to note that I don't necessarily see it that way.
No, I don't think that he stumbled his way into success. It's that he was stumbling that week, but within 2 weeks, nobody was even talking about it anymore.
Yeah, because in essence, the truth is we are the world's consumer class. Whoever these manufacturing bases are in the other parts of the world, they need their factories open. They need to be producing stuff that we're going to be buying. And if from a pricing perspective, we basically say, hey, your profit margin is no longer going to be what it was because we're being taken advantage of. All these different trade agreements that are supposed to be making it fair are not making it fair. So that's over now. Various negotiations then ensued. And ultimately, the big one was obviously China and the United States, and they needed to come to some terms of agreement. And then as of this week, that's being finalized. So, yeah, anyway, just wanted to note that. But sticking on the political side, Governor Paterson, and you're listening to the left versus the right. He's Governor David Paterson. I'm James Flippin on the right. I wanted to ask you about Senator Alex Padilla of California having sort of stormed in and interrupted. He was very rude at that press conference on Thursday of this week, in which case he was more or less detained, arrested, whatever you want to call it, handcuffed for a time, and then freed after he kind of burst into Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security Secretary's press conference concerning the ICE immigration crackdown in Los Angeles. I saw the whole thing as just a clownish attempt to get attention, be on TV, become the star, try to fundraise off of that type of thing. Once upon a time, the U.S. Senate was supposed to be the upper chamber that had a little bit more decorum and a little bit more respect behind it. I guess those days are gone. But your reaction to that Alex Padilla situation in California?
My reaction, I think, James, I think you're going to like it.
Okay, good.
I think we, as Americans, not just the congressional representatives, not just the people who cover them in the media, but all of us, we have to agree on what the boundaries are. Now, one of the congressmen got up when Padilla was taken. He wasn't really taken into custody, but they handcuffed him.
Yeah, he was cuffed, yeah.
And said that he was doing his job and that being vociferous and antagonistic, that's his job. Then why do we have words like vociferous and antagonistic? Because it's a game. What should be happening is that Mr. Padilla, by the way, he did meet with the secretary a little later on that afternoon.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's certain points where when you go over the line, it doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right or whether you're red or blue or anything like that, that it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. If that had happened in reverse to, let's say, one of President Biden's agency heads a couple of years ago, we'd have been screaming for the person to be fired, and, that kind of thing.
Right.
And this time, they removed the senator so that the secretary could speak. And apparently they were willing, after she spoke, to let him meet with her.
Right.
We don't know whether or not they said that to him, but in other words, that's how, when he was first getting worked up, that's how I would have tried to have diffused it if I was either in the Secret Service or just one of the president's aides. It's like, look, the secretary's aides. It's like, look, I'll talk to the secretary. I think she can give you a few minutes. Now, can you just stand in the back and let us finish this press conference?
Yeah, but see, that's...
So I think it's totally wrong.
Well, you're absolutely right, because if that was Alex Padilla, Senator Padilla's aim was to gain an audience with the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, then that can happen. You can make that happen. You're one of the 50 U.S. senators. You're in a position of privilege, power, influence. You pick up the phone, people move. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, yeah, she's a member of cabinet. She's an important woman. She's got power and influence. but it actually kind of pales in comparison in some ways to whatever it is to be a U.S. senator. So if you're telling me that you're such an ineffectual politician that you can't get a meeting with the Department of Homeland Security secretary when she's in your state, then you got a bigger problem than whatever else is going on in your office. And I understand that there's a lot of emotions involved in this whole immigration thing. I get it. But come on, be an adult, be an elected official, be a member of Congress, and find a way to meet with her and express your concerns that way. Otherwise, it's just completely obvious that that's not what it was all about. And you're just doing anything you can to pander to your audience, pander to your constituents, try to get on TV, become a star, raise your money. Because otherwise, who is Alex Padilla? I don't know. He's one of the senators, I guess. Like we said at the onset, he's got power and influence, but I don't necessarily know what he looks like or who he is because I don't pay that close attention to, California politics.
If I wanted to discuss the issues that he was trying to bring up at the press conference, what I would have done was I would have let the secretaries, there are always a few staffers with her, know that I want to talk to her. This is what I want to talk about. Right. It'll only take 10 minutes. Can we do it after the press conference? If after the press conference they blow me off and walk away, then before the media leaves, I jump in front of them and say, the secretary wouldn't even give me, first of all, I'm the United States Senator for this state, wouldn't even give me a minute to get up and talk to her. And I just want everybody to know that.
Yeah.
I think that would have been effective.
That would have been effective.
It would have put the secretary on the defense.
You're absolutely right, Governor Paterson. That is 100% true. If there had been an effort to reach out and say, let's sit down, let's have a discussion, and then that was rebuffed, and the belligerent response had come from Kristi Noem, then the high ground would have been totally lost from her position. Right. And Senator Padilla would have been looked at as a compassionate fighter for his people, for the immigrant population, and for the Los Angeles and the whole thing, and people would have supported that. But instead, because he just bursts in there and in essence tries to get himself arrested, it comes off as the stunt that it really was.
And that's why I said at the beginning of this part of the discussion, we as Americans have got to get back together and agree about where the boundaries are.
I totally agree. And that's,
Thursday, are we going to go to a commercial break?
We are in a second, but you got a minute.
Okay, so I was at the Mets game on Thursday.
Amen.
And these two guys are sitting behind me, and they're talking to each other. And they were saying how 30 years ago, when you turned on the news, whether it was CBS or NBC, whether it was Walter Cronkite or Huntley and Brinkley or whatever, it was the same news that they read.
Yep.
So now you can watch Newsmax or you can watch MSNBC,
right.
And you're not getting the same story. You're getting a different story. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think our country is ailing from the fact that there's no sense of, wait a minute, no one's allowed to do that, so you can't do it.
Right. Yeah, we should have some established standards. This is the left versus the right. He's Governor David Paterson. I'm James Flippin. When we come back, I'm going to make a statement on how this show really kind of brings out exactly what Governor Paterson is talking about and what we need to accomplish as a country.
The left versus the right on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Oh, such a clutch pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom, too. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
The GOAT.
Save up to 50% with minimum purchase at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
At the UPS Store, we want to make this summer the summer of shipping. Summer Ship-a-Looza. So you can start crossing items off your must-ship list, like the vintage film camera your college kid needs for class, or the vase you told your mom you would send her ages ago. And with our pack and ship guarantee, your items arrive safe or we reimburse you. So stop by your local store today for everything you need to be unstoppable. Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Available at participating locations. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
It is the left versus the right. He's Governor David Paterson, former governor of New York. I'm James Flippin, one of the news guys, one of the fill-in talk show hosts here at 77 WABC. And, you know, Governor, some months ago, when you and I were more regularly doing this show, and then prior to that, it was me and Anthony Weiner doing the show.
Lucky you.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, I want to say something about that, because Anthony Weiner, a guy that, I'll be honest, when I first was working with him just as a talk show host doing the news, I used to think to myself, man, I really hate when this guy does his talk show. I can't stand what he says, can't stand the lines that he puts forward. It's just kind of not my cup of tea, no question about it. And then when I started working with him, most of the time we got along. But there was one particular episode where we really did kind of scream on each other because it was connected to January 6th, and there's a lot of disagreement about that whole event and whatever. But I will say that what I really appreciate about our ability to kind of sit here and talk about this stuff is, even when you disagree with somebody, and even if you're passionate about it, there's a line that you can take it up to. And then if you're going beyond that, you're a jerk. You're a belligerent person. You're a unhinged individual who really can't see the forest for the trees. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to all be productive, loving people of society that can get along, that can mend our differences, that can kind of, you know, pursue happiness, whatever it may be. And that's something that's kind of unique to the Western world, right? Like, we kind of live in harmony. We try our best, and we all have a basic established rule of law and respect and decorum and whatever. And that's what makes us Americans. You know, that's really what it's all about. And I think that this show, although it's not always so easy to kind of find some of that common ground, and sometimes you don't necessarily find it, it is important to highlight how it's possible for people to come together and be like, cool, you see it that way, I see it this way.
Absolutely. And this was, you know, kind of the dialogue when I was in the legislature. There were people on each side who were kind of extreme. But most of us could sit down and talk to each other and even disagree, but it wasn't a painful experience at all.
And that's such an important thing to be able to do. So let me ask you about that, Governor Paterson. These anti-ICE demonstrations, at times riots in Los Angeles, lots of property destruction, you know, threats of violence, intimidation, people not able to get to work in places even like here in New York City. What do you think we should do in response to these? Because it's an important constitutional principle, right? The freedom of speech, the right to assemble, the ability to peacefully protest. What's the best way to approach this whole thing where, in my estimation, there's some element of like paid protest that's really kind of crossing the line into something that's a lot more nefarious and destructive? It's hard to kind of find that line. It's also kind of hard to sort of get into this discussion of some people are saying, hey, people's rights are being abused. Other people are saying my rights are being abused just by you guys going out there and setting stuff on fire. And, you know, how do you find a common ground when it comes to the ability to protest and do it peacefully? And you have to spend all this money for cops. Like, I'm just going to give you a second to respond to all that's going on with these anti-ICE protests.
Well, I think that there are people who legitimately feel that the investigations to determine, you know, who is a citizen and who's not, who didn't go through the process and that kind of thing, that I think they start out with a level of sincerity, that they're people who really think, so, I mean, I heard today that the uncle of a very involved political figure on Long Island, who's Hispanic, was taken into custody by ICE. They've sent him to 3 other parts of the country each week and are now going to send him to El Salvador. I don't think, I find something wrong with that. This man's been working there for years and never gotten in any trouble and that kind of thing. But apparently he had a DUI, and they started with a DUI, and now he's been deported. So I think, but what I would say is that when any protest, regardless of the issue, starts to become violent, those individuals need to be prosecuted. They absolutely need to be prosecuted. But here we are again, James, the people who didn't think that the January 6th people who got arrested did anything wrong. One of them was the president, who pardoned them all. But on the other hand, you have these situations where property is starting to get damaged, fires are starting to get started, and the mayor and the governor resisted the desire to send in the National Guard, and the National Guard was sent in and should have been, because it had gotten to a dangerous state.
Well, what's sad about what you're talking about, Governor Paterson, and really I will just kind of set to the side my opinion on January 6th and what that really was and what it really wasn't and whatever. I will say this. The one thing that I find most odious or offensive in terms of the reaction to the LA riots, let's say, versus what some people have called the Capitol riot. I don't like to use that term for that, but whatever. You got to be consistent. I think that there's this perception among people like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and
well, at least she was there this time.
She was at least there. She decided not to take a little jaunt off to Africa or wherever she was last time when she had to come back in the middle of the wildfires. That was embarrassing. Yeah, at least she was there. But I will say it seems like there's a different response from people on the political left. And this is actually kind of also just setting aside the debate over immigration, because I'll say this. I think if you had people in a peaceful, calm way coming together en masse to speak their mind and pour their heart out about people being arrested in immigration sweeps who they don't see as violent criminals. They've been here their entire life. You should leave those people alone. I think there's some sympathy from some people on the political right to that argument.
More like some of the demonstrations in the 60s.
That's exactly right.
Regarding the war, even marches about immigration then, and then just civil rights.
Right. It's a much more effective message.
Very infrequent that any of those marches got out of hand.
Exactly. And that's the much more effective. That's the reason why you don't talk about the civil rights, riots. You talk about the civil rights marches. And of course, we did have riots in the 60s in response to some of that police activity, even just in Newark, obviously, we know that very well.
Right, Los Angeles as
well. And this has happened before. We know that. But just if I could go back to this concept of what I was talking about, you had Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, in the wake of January 6th, 2021, he deployed National Guard members in California to protect the State House in Sacramento. He had this big showy press conference where he said, this is we're going to have this protected. We're not going to let the insurgents have any role here and all this kind of thing. So he does that for some conceptual idea of maybe there was going to be MAGA supporters showing up at the State House in Sacramento. That's totally justified to him. But he doesn't want to bring in the National Guard members when people are actually lighting cars on fire and looting stores and blocking traffic and all this kind of stuff. Then it's totally inappropriate. Why? Because the majority of the politicians on the left, Governor Paterson, don't care about Main Street. They don't care about the people. They think that the politicians and the politician class is really important and really something to be protected. And also, if you're not a citizen, well, then you're also really willing to be protected. They love you. You're not a citizen. Oh, wow, you're an amazing person because you came here and you didn't win the birth lottery or whatever term they want to use. So it's really offensive to me. The same thing happened during the George Floyd riots where nobody seemed to care about all the businesses being burned out in the South Bronx and destroyed. But then when January 6th happened, oh my gosh, the U.S. Capitol building. Oh, what a venerable building. Please, it's our house. It's the people's house. So, yeah, maybe there was a little dust up there, but don't get your knickers in a twist because you just work there. It's our house.
That is correct.
Period.
Again, and I guess it's just the theme for today's show, is that it's the hypocrisy of people changing their minds on issues based on what they think would be politically feasible for them at the particular time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, you've got to know when to stop things. Just as that police officer didn't know when to stop choking George Floyd, you've got to know when to stop creating such a furor that you now have other people getting hurt. Fortunately, no one else other than George Floyd passed away during those weeks after the attack. But
there was the former police officer who was shot and killed in Missouri. But
yes, right, that's right. So, but what I'm saying is that that there was a time when people would condemn this.
Right.
Now, the night that Martin Luther King was murdered, I'm sure you weren't born, but I was 13 at the time. And on what was the new News Radio 88 had started. I'm listening to the news, and they announced his passing. And then they interviewed a senator from Mississippi. I don't think it was Stennis. I used to know his name. He said, well, look, I'm sorry that it happened, but, when you go down and you cause trouble, this is what's going to happen to you. Well, what trouble did Martin Luther King cause? He was standing on the balcony of a building getting ready to go to dinner.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And so what I'm trying to say is that that was a time when even very conservative people were just appalled that the civil rights leader could be killed that way.
Right.
And this is when everyone lines up. Now, we lined up after September 11th. We did. We lined up when we landed on the moon. We've got to find some place where we can look in each other's eyes and not see hate, but actually see someone that's interested in voicing a point of view.
Yeah. And it's sad that it does seem like it's the tough times that sort of tend to bring us together, Governor Paterson, as opposed to maybe the opposite. But, one of the most recent ones we had, COVID, definitely kind of just furthered the divide in a lot of ways. And that was sort of a fascinating concept because most of the time, you're right, we were able to sort of rally together when we faced those types of threats. Before we go, because we're up against it, going to get your thoughts here on the New Jersey governor's race being set between Mikey Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli. Mikey Sherrill, the Democratic congresswoman, Jack Ciattarelli, a businessman who ran for governor in the past in New Jersey, coming up just short in the race with Phil Murphy. Are you a Mikey Sherrill fan? Do you like Mikey Sherrill?
I like Mikey Sherrill. I like her. They did a job on her on some of those commercials.
They did,
but I actually like her, and she's a very interesting woman, a pilot and a prosecutor, and all these different things she's done. And we'll see how that goes. Ciattarelli has got to have a little bit of an advantage because this is his third time trying, and I'm sure he believes that 3 times is a charm. But if I was going to take a guess right I think Sherrill wins the gubernatorial race.
Look, I'm a New Jersey guy, born and bred, live there to this day.
And born where?
Born in Glen Ridge.
Okay.
So that's, in Essex County, kind of like near Montclair, and I'm in Bloomfield now. But I'll say this, the hope for me is that Ciattarelli can get it done. I also don't really know how to handicap it. I think that the gains that New Jersey Republicans have made here in terms of registering voters are noteworthy. Chitterelli came up just short last time, but I think there was a lot of unpopularity with Murphy. Some people who were a little bit ticked off just by him as almost like the face of the government during COVID, probably not even necessarily his fault. He also made some pretty bold goals public in terms of New Jersey Transit. Those 1,000% did not come true. It's still pretty bad, I have to be honest with you. And it's an agency that just barely avoided a more protracted strike recently. So New Jersey Transit will be kind of a focus of that campaign for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Mikey Sherrill, I guess not as progressive as a guy like Fulop or Ross Baraka. I guess you could take
some
that.
of those people that she beat in the primary.
Right. You could be happy about that one. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Last thing before we go, any thoughts on Charles Rangel you want to note as he was laid to rest on Friday?
Just a dynamic individual who could tell you you're wrong and make you think you're agreeing with him. He was a master at speaking to other people, and he just had a style. He was there for 46 years, and he upset Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who had been the congressman for 26 years, but he was not living in the district. He was living on the island of Bimini, and while he was away, the cat played and stayed there for 46 years.
Wow. God bless.
God rest Congressman Charles Rangel.
And you know what? I really want to pull that off. Telling people they're wrong and convincing them somehow that they actually agree with me.
Yes.
That's a thing. I want to get that going. All right. So he's Governor David Paterson. I'm James Flippin. The left versus the right. Coming up next, it is high. It is far. It is John Sterling.
Beautiful.
Thanks for listening to The Left versus the Right. You can hear The Left versus the Right Saturday afternoons at 4. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?